Today on Locked On Rockies, the final homestand of the year and all of 2022 has not really been home sweet home.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 21st day of September in the year 2022. I am your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every single day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do in these parts as we talk about the Colorado Rockies each and every day. And today on the Locked On Rockies podcast, I want to talk to you. We're going to look at the home record for the Rockies and kind of highlight how it's been a bummer for the Rockies this year. Something that's usually been a strength for the Rockies has not necessarily been that way for the club this season. It's been something that we'll take a look at the Rockies' home record for some other full seasons. We will skip the pandemic season just because it's just hard to kind of really compare that and things of that nature with the club there. So we're going to just do the past couple of full seasons and we'll take a look at the road record, of course, as well, just because we kind of have to. But we'll take a look at some of these past years at home and compare it to how the Rockies looked this year. And we'll also take a look at a player that's passed a big-time milestone yesterday, so at least one thing to celebrate. But, boy, this final homestand for the Colorado Rockies has not gotten off to a good start. This is a team that really was kind of looking to finish the year on a high note, to kind of pump any sort of energy or anything, because a lot of the perception and a lot of stuff that I'm seeing on social media, and there's a lot of passionate fans out there, but it's just indifference about the Rockies. It's the lack of kind of caring about the Rockies at this stage. There's nothing that excites you about even the diehards. There's no reason for some of them to tune in. There's no reason for them to be necessarily excited or storylines to watch even when you think about it, that the Rockies are playing a ton of the potential future players of this team. But when the team continues to go out and lose games like they did yesterday and really not score any runs, 3 runs at home is a tremendous bummer, especially when the Rockies get 10 hits, and especially because they didn't get anything going until the 6th inning anyway yesterday. And in the game before that, all the offense was blown away from the bullpen that really just squandered things for you. The feel good feelings of being home for the Rockies have not been there in this series so far. They have 2 more chances to split this series here with the Giants. They need to win tonight if they want to do so. But when you take a look at the Rockies' record at home this year, the Rockies are 40-36 at home this year, somewhere that's usually been a really big bright spot, a place where the Rockies have often dominated, is not been the case. If the Rockies continue to struggle on this homestand, there is a chance that the Rockies finish below 500 at Coors Field this year. I mean, the Rockies would have to basically lose every single game from here on out. It's for at home up until Sunday. If the Rockies don't win a single one of these games, they will fall below 500 at home, which has got to be the first time in a long time. But when you compare this, the Rockies had 48 wins at home this or last year. So that's the Rockies will win less at home this year. If they go on a 5-game tear, they'll be just underneath a team that was really rather dominant at home in certain stretches in 2021 for the Rockies. You go back to 2019, the Rockies 43-38. So, a year where the Rockies, the chance the Rockies can perform better at home there here if they win and manage to win 4 out of the final 5 games at home. And then, of course, the even with the season where they just fell short of the Dodgers in 2018, 47-34. So it seems to me the Rockies' barometer for success, or if the Rockies are in a good spot in the season. If you look at it more often than not, I know 2021 that's not the case. But you feel a lot better of the Rockies 74 and 87 and last year than you do about the Rockies 64 and 84 currently this season. If the Rockies can manage to get above 45 wins at home, it's usually a good sign, at least for an overall more successful season in terms of Rockies standards. Obviously, when we look at our sample size, there's only 1 year of where the Rockies actually had some postseason action there in 2018. But let's take a look at the home record in 2017, the other successful year for the Rockies, 46 and 35. So it's not necessarily a hardcore set in stone thing, but if the Rockies aren't winning 45 games at home over the course of the season, you can make a case that they have been struggling and underperforming. I know these teams are a lot better, but this is still a place where it should be really difficult, and the Rockies aren't too far off of being able to capture some of this. In 2019, the Rockies go with the 43 and 38 at home. And then in 2021, like we said, 48 wins, a team that was kind of better than the Rockies this year, certainly, but still not in terms of a finishing a final standings wise. But that also leads to the Rockies are going to finish in last place in the NL West. I think with the Rockies losing with these games against the Giants are going to be able to stay ahead. And I know that doesn't really mean anything necessarily, but it's something to look at. It's a benchmark that we can look at when we're looking to measure Rockies' success. And this is a team that, and we've talked about this before, home has to be dominant. The Rockies need to be a dominant team at home, even when they're a team like this. They need to still be a team that can hit and score at home. But the issues with the Rockies offense are clearly so great that even the benefits of a hitter-friendly ballpark and playing somewhere like Coors Field aren't enough to beef up and help the current state of the Colorado Rockies offense. That means that we have issues. The issues with the offense are great. And just these prospects and hoping aren't enough. If the Rockies truly want to be competitive, if they truly believe that, if they truly want to capitalize on hopefully what will be a Chris Bryant that can play a full season next year in his contributions for the team, what are they going to do to build around it? Because clearly the team as constructed right now isn't good enough to even use the benefits of Coors Field and could be potentially the worst record that the Rockies have had at home since 2019. Again, I don't know if that's necessarily something that is that much focus. I think really the big glaring issue when you think about it is the fact that the Rockies are 24 and 48 on the road this year. 2021 last year, 26 and 54, 28 and 53 in 2019, 44 and 38 in 2018, and 41 and 40 in 2017. So clearly, I know this isn't crazy analysis, and it's obvious that if you play above 500 on the road, win 45 games at home, and the Colorado Rockies have a chance at the playoffs. That's for at least in terms of successful Rockies baseball that we have seen, even with these good Dodgers teams, even with these Padres teams that have done it, even with the Diamondbacks that have gone up and down, and even with the Giants in that mix as well. For the Rockies to be in the mix of things in the playoff hunt, it seems like if we're just going off of records, the Rockies need to win 45 plus games at home, and they need to play above 500 ball on the road. That is at least one part of the equation of the big basic. That's one of the baseline, the most basic type of path we can start looking for the Rockies to get back to the postseason. How do they get to that? Now, that's way more complicated. We got to dive even deeper into that. But at least those are some measurements and some lines and some things we can look at as we go through the season for the Rockies. If the Rockies struggle at home and if they go on nasty, brutal, terrible road stretches like we've seen, we can kind of see the proof in the pudding, at least even the past 5 years. We have a sample size to prove it. The Rockies being terrible on the road and not winning 45 games at home means that they don't make the playoffs and they're at the bottom and they're at the bottom of the division and fighting off the basement. In the 2 years that they do win more than 45 games at home and they play above 500 ball on the road, they made the playoffs. Simple, easy math that really just kind of dumbs down a ton of the other issues for the Rockies. But that's something I just was kind of noticing and was looking at here as we look for today, as we kind of compare and wind down the season and compare it. I mean, it felt better last year because the Rockies were so good at home. Every time they played at home, even with the issues facing the team, it felt like they had a chance to win no matter who they were playing, other than the Dodgers and the Giants last year. Whereas this year, I haven't felt like been confident in the Rockies to win games really anywhere. There's been very rare moments where I have felt that the Rockies are the better team on the field as constructed. And that's not to just kind of harp on the players that the Rockies have. I mean, the fact that the Rockies going younger and turning to some of their other, some of their prospects earlier in the season than other teams might. But there's still, I haven't felt like the Rockies were the good team, the better team since the beginning of the year when they did have that nice stretch. We'll see. We'll see what we'll have to. The Rockies can't sit on their hands and do nothing over the offseason if they want to continue their narrative of competitiveness, but we know they will. Let's keep talking about the present, and let's highlight a player that can look back on this season and smile. And even if no matter what, it's going to be something that this year will always be something that he will remember fondly. And if you need a little help in the fun times, why don't you check out BlueChew, a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but chewable tablets at the fraction of a cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online, so no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. BlueChew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. And so, if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, chew it and do it. We got a special deal for our listeners. Try BlueChew free when you use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. Just pay $5 in shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code LOCKEDON to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and more important safety information. And we thank BlueChew for sponsoring this podcast. Remember, folks, if you are checking out the podcast live on YouTube, we answer your questions live. So if you head to YouTube and search Locked On Rockies, subscribe, that's when you're going to know that we are live and you can ask your questions live in the live chat and have your questions answered. We're also free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. Your reviews, your shares, all that stuff is a huge help for us. The Rockies. A Rocky set a career milestone for himself last night, and that is CJ Cron. CJ Cron, the Rockies all-star this year, is going to look at this year, and it's going to be a career highlight for him. He's at a 2.7 WAR here for this season. 267 batting. Actually, I think this might be a little... No, it should be up to date. I don't think he quite is at 30 home runs. I believe that was home run 29 last night, and he has been the entirety of the Rockies offense really this year. I mean, Charlie Blackmon has been helpful, but thank goodness for CJ Cron this year. And really, this is something, when we do look at good signings, when we look at smart moves made by the Colorado Rockies in a time of frustrating and bad moves for the Colorado Rockies, this is one that we can highlight. This is he's almost going to be setting a new career high in RBIs by 10. He's going to get one more RBI. He could tie a career high in home runs with one more. They're tying his 2018 season in Tampa Bay. This is going to be a season to remember for CJ Cron. He's got a career high in triples. He's tied, he's a couple of doubles away from a career high there. He has set a career high in hits. He has set a career high in runs. He is maybe going to get that batting average up there for a career high. I'm going to say no on that one. Same with the on-base percentage and the slugging, but he's still going to, all the other things there are going to be looking up for him. This is a smart move for the Rockies. And again, we talk about where Tolia is at, Michael Tolia is at right now. And I'm glad that he's spending the end of the season up with the club and he's getting a lot of time. But it's clear that Tolia needs more time to see more major league pitching and develop and strike out less. While CJ Cron strikes out a ton as well, 155 strikeouts for Cron this year, also a career high for the slugging first baseman. He's also still someone that demonstrated that he can bring thump to the Rockies lineup. He really seems to be the only one that hits home runs for this Rockies team this year. I mean, when you look at the Rockies home run leaders, this is all going to be, it's dominated by CJ Cron here in reality. When you look at how it shakes out for the home runs for the Rockies, he's got 12 more than Ryan McMahon at this point. He's got 13 more than Charlie Blackmon, 14 more than Randall Grichuk, 18 more than Brendan Rodgers, and 20 more than Elias Diaz, 22 than Connor Joe, and 23 more than Servin, 24 more than Montero and Chris Bryant, 25 or 26 more than Alan Trejo and Jose Iglesias, and 27 more than Daza and Tolia, and basically the rest of the roster there. So clearly, it shows how important CJ Cron has been to the Rockies this year. He was more than deserving to be the Rockies All-Star, and of course, I do believe that it would have made sense to still trade Cron, especially before he got cold. But the Rockies, especially with how willing the Rockies were to move on and go with Tolia at this point in the season. So I am curious when was the shift for the Rockies for this season to kind of say, it's time for the prospects. It's time to see what else we got. When the Rockies I know we could probably look at it with the call-ups and stuff, but internally, when that was and why it came, it's still so interesting that the Rockies are playing all these players, all these young guys, all these prospects this year, and yet they made no moves at the deadline. So it doesn't clear much up, because what are you going to do next year with Cron? What are you going to do with Tolia? What are you going to do with Montero? What are you going to do with McMahon? What are you going to do with Rodgers? What are you going to do with the outfield? You're not getting as much clarity as you want. If we were just committing to the young guys and saying they're going to go through it, we're doing this and we're going to stick with it and we're going to keep going with it, then we'd know. But now we don't know. Who plays shortstop for the Colorado Rockies next year? And now with Tovar going to get a look and some spring training. What does that look like? Are the Rockies trying to bring back Jose Iglesias to buy more time for Tovar? Is that why they didn't trade Iglesias, even though he would have made sense to trade? These vets with the Rockies banking on lots of prospects being their future, it's going to be I think it's going to be really interesting. And the Noah Factor here in the chat asks a really good question, and we will dive into that because this is something we haven't talked a lot about. I was going to kind of do more of this in the offseason, but I like this question. And but that's kind of because I'll just wrap up my CJ Cron thoughts there. I mean, really great ad for the Rockies. I don't mind it. I think it makes sense. I think Tolia needs more time, and I think Cron next year for the Rockies is a fine option. But what we learned this year, CJ Cron can't be your sole power supply, can't be your sole offensive generator, can't be your sole home run hitter. The Rockies need someone that can hit 20 plus home runs, and him and CJ Cron provide some thump. And I think that they're hoping that Chris Bryant does that next year. Let's dive into this question from the Noah Factor here in the live chat. But first, this. The Noah Factor says, do you think the fact that every team is going to play every team next year will end up helping or hurting the Rockies? Helping the Rockies. It is a blessing for the Colorado Rockies to not have to play the National League West as much as they do. I don't necessarily, this isn't a magical fix for the Rockies' issues, but just look at the stretch. Look at what the Rockies are finishing right now. If the Rockies were in a playoff wild card hunt this season, the Rockies would be playing only the Giants, the Padres, and the Dodgers. And I believe they're done with the Diamondbacks. It's just Giants, Padres, Dodgers to finish this season, including a 6-game road trip in LA to finish the season. We talked a little bit about this before, but I'll never be not flabbergasted by how brutal of a scheduling that is. I never want to see the Colorado Rockies play the Dodgers in 6 straight games other than the NLCS. That's or in the playoffs. That's the only other time I want to see the Rockies play the Dodgers 6 times in a row. I don't want to have to go to San Francisco and LA in the back-to-back road trip next year. I think the Rockies, they are a team that's going to have to travel a lot. They're not the Mariners, so to speak, or some of the California teams. But I think the Rockies being able to, and especially having teams that don't go to Coors Field, come to Coors Field that more often, that's, again, another X factor thing about Coors Field that you have to capitalize on. You have to capitalize on the fact that you have teams that are coming to play at altitude and playing at Coors Field that don't do it very often. And on the flip side, the Rockies are going to go to hitter-friendly ballparks on the road, and they need to be better on the road. You need to be able to go out and take down teams on the road, and you're going to be in some hitter-friendly environments. I think we'll dive more into this, Noah. I think as the offseason goes on, and especially when we we'll look at some matchups on the schedule. I know the schedule is out, but the offseason will kind of break down and look at maybe some stretches that you could kind of replace with, hey, it's way better that the Rockies are going to go play the NL Central. This group, I know that they play the Central a lot. Maybe that's not the best thing, but this group of teams versus a 2-week stretch of NL West ball. I am all for every team playing every team. I'm sure that there's other reasons for teams in other markets and rivalries and things of that nature. But if you're the Rockies, this is a no-brainer. I'm sure the Rockies were one of the ones pushing very hard for this. I mean, for them as their business too, they can't wait to open Coors Field up to even more people that haven't come to Coors Field yet because the Rockies and their team haven't matched up. It's a win-win, I think, for the Rockies, both on the business side and hopefully in performance-wise, because less time against the Dodgers, the better. Folks, I think we're going to wrap this things up for today. This is a nice little pod. We kind of had some interesting topics and then kind of got to some good conversation on it. So I hope you all enjoyed the show as well. If you want more baseball talk, the Locked On MLB podcast. Ooh, I'll answer this here before we go. Alex Hart gets a question here. You think we'll extend B-Rod before the start of next season? Yes, I do. If the Rockies want to continue what they did last offseason, and if they want to continue their brand of loyalty, of rewarding loyalty, especially with the way Brendan Rodgers played in the second half of this season, I could easily see Brendan Rodgers getting an extension. And it might take maybe it takes a little bit of time, but I don't know how much the Rockies really want to mess around with not getting extensions done with players they really like. And I believe the Rockies really like Brendan Rodgers. I would imagine, I think the Rockies might hold Brendan Rodgers in more highly regard than Ryan McMahon, but we'll see, because McMahon got the contract already. Now, and especially since McMahon got the contract, if McMahon gets the contract, Rodgers deserves the contract as well, because I think Rodgers has the ability is potentially the better player in that instance for me. So Thanks for the questions, Alex Hart and the Noah Factor. If you want to get your questions answered live, you can subscribe to the show on YouTube and know when we go live and drop your questions in there. I love answering your questions as well. You can follow the show on Twitter. Oh, I guess I realized I didn't even put my little thingy up here. You can follow us at LO Rockies. You can follow me there at Paul Holden 33. I forgot to put my little thing up this show, but that's okay. There it is. Now that you know, there's my little lower third. You can see who I am. Folks, go stay up to date with all things Colorado sports with the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, and Locked On Nuggets podcast. And until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On